Thank you. Okay, welcome back. We'll move on to item 3, which is our committee, item 4, which is our committee of the whole. The first item, 4.1, is under emergency measures and public safety. And I will pass that to the chair, Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Your Worship. An item has been brought forward to the committee that we, from Councillor Gagne, that we would like to modify the current appointment of 2 part-time bylaw officers to a full-time bylaw officer so that we may get better interest for the position. So I will open it up to Councillor Gagne to elaborate or add any other additional comments.
Thank you, Councillor Saint-Louis. As we all know, on le sait tout, ça fait un bon bout de temps qu'on a de la misère à faire du recrutement pour 2 officiers pour renforcer nos bylaws dans la municipalité du West Nipissing. Je pense que la pénurie d'employés, ça fait longtemps que ça dure à cause de COVID. Puis je pense qu'au moins on affichera pour un poste à temps plein. Ça nous donnera la chance de pouvoir recruter quelqu'un puis possiblement pouvoir le garder longtemps sur ce côté-là. So as we all know, we have 2 opened and empty vacant position of bylaw officer at the moment. And I think if we put these 2 positions into a full-time, I think we have a better chance of recruiting a full-time bylaw officer and to be able to retain maybe that person a long time. We all know, I went door to door, and one of the biggest questions is, when are we going to get a bylaw officer to reinforce the bylaws? So that's pretty much my explanation of that. So back to you, Councillor Saint-Louis.
Thank you, Councillor Gagne. I will open that up to everyone else. Councillor Pedre, would you like to add anything?
Just at the time, a couple of years ago, we had, I thought it was a full-time, Monsieur Pilon. Was he full-time or part-time?
So your worship, he was part-time.
Part-time, okay.
Oh, Mr. Chair, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank you.
He was part-time.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Duval?
Yeah, well, I do agree with, through you, Chair, I do agree with Councillor Gagne that we do need to make it a full-time position. It'll help us retain a bylaw officer, and bylaws are it takes a long time to get familiar with them. So if we keep switching bylaw officers year after year, every couple of years, it's hard for them to enforce the bylaws or give us, council or staff, recommendations to change bylaws or implement new bylaws that may be handy to everyone here in West Nipissing. They have a job that's pretty difficult, often dealing with neighbor disputes, things like that. So it's good if we can give them the support they need and give a full-time position, which will hopefully attract someone else. And one more thing I'd like to add is, if we do get a full-time bylaw officer, we should ensure that any bylaws that we implement as a council are enforceable. That's something very important. You can't just slap bylaws on everything and make his job more difficult. So we have to keep that into account to support our bylaw officer and help him from his job.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol?
I like the idea. Good idea. I don't have much more to add to it, though.
Councillor Kirschlein?
You, Mr. Chair, I'm in agreement with Councillor Gagne. I think it's important to have consistency when, making sure that the bylaws are applied, and I am the same I guess, train of thought. The only thing I guess I would caution is, I guess, before making any decision, maybe just having an overview of the financial considerations. Rule of thumb is 1.4 times the cost. That's the employer's cost, plus there's pensions and, taxable benefits. That all adds up. So prior, I guess, to making any decision, I'd be more comfortable looking at the numbers.
Excellent. Thank you.
Would you like to ask that too, please?
Oui. Okay. Well, through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Sorry, getting used to this, but
The reason we're prepared is because her worship had made a request for what the cost of two part-time bylaw officers are and what one would be. So we budgeted in 2022 for two bylaw officers, 100,000, 99,000 to be exact. If we were to take that budget and assign one full-time officer, you'd be actually dropping to approximately 85,000. So it wouldn't have a negative impact. Some of the reasons why the part-time bylaw officer would have been more expensive as well is because of the shared event and the way we were assigning them with the overlap. But one bylaw officer would be for consideration purposes, I would suggest to you that it would be pretty much a wash. I don't think there would be a difference. If Ms. Craddock has anything to add on that, is that about right?
That's about right, because, we do have all the employer responsibilities even with a part-time employee, and it's just sort of a matter of hours. And certainly the idea of going and looking for someone full-time is probably more advantageous, but it is sort of dollar for dollar trade-off between part-time dollar hours and full-time dollar hours.
Good. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rebel. Councillor Tessie.
I have no comments. Everybody's provided information that covers what I had. Thank you.
Councillor Restul. Just through you, Mr. Chair, a question on, I guess, enforcement beyond the bylaw officer. And when we had one of the presentations as our education sessions here, they talked about the local police force, whether it be municipal or OPP, more OPP, obviously. Do we have anything in place with them right now for enforcement of bylaws? And if we don't, is that something we could look at based on, one person can do so much, but with sick time, vacation time, that kind of stuff? Or if there is a great volume.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as I understand it, when we entered into the agreement, the bylaw enforcement in general capacity it doesn't exist. Where they will intercede with bylaw enforcement is where there's a public safety issue, and then they will assist with that bylaw. Those types of bylaw enforcement, but we did not take the extra goal package. Because we had such a difficult time recruiting part-time bylaw officers, that did come across, and my understanding of it is it was brought to the police board, and at this time, Municipal Services Branch has a moratorium on adding the bylaw enforcement, if I'm not mistaken, with respect to that. Am I correct I understand there is a freeze where they're not entertaining it at this time. So that's why we're still moving ahead with the way we were going to move. And we did delay, in the last month or so, knowing with conversation that this was coming up. It is our opinion that this will enhance the capabilities, our capability of recruitment with respect to one full-time. Then we should be able to get a qualified person to come in.
So thank you for that response. And just, I guess, a comment through you is just, I think I'd be supportive of that if we don't have anybody and we don't have our police force, where that's a part of their duties. Essentially right now, there's no enforcement of our bylaws happening. And I agree as well that I think putting out a full-time position is probably a lot more enticing to someone than a part-time positions. But I also understand it's been difficult in the hiring process, not only here, but everywhere. It's an employee needs market. And hopefully with what we can put out there, we might be able to attract someone to the position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess through you, Mr. Chair, I guess right now it's kind of late to explore that, but over the long term, is it possible to explore the possibility of shared services with our neighbors? For bylaw enforcement specifically, is that something that could be entertained, or how would you suggest, let's say, we would go about doing so? It isn't something we can do like overnight, but...
Through you, Mr. Chair, we certainly can explore that. typically, when we've had shared services discussions with our neighbors, with all due respect, it's just that a little bit like the policing issue is that our policing compared to the combined policing of every other municipality, including highway, we're still higher than that. So we would take the lion's share of activity on that. And so we are determining our needs based, our like one full-time officer based on the needs in West Nipissing. And so to try and have that one full-time officer now get involved with our three neighbors to the west. I might suggest that if we are looking at, once we provide you with activity reports and update reports, where it's looking that one bylaw officer could be 1.5, then we may have an opportunity then to reach out to our neighbors and say, would you be interested in the shared services agreement for the second person? But right now, in my opinion, Councillor Coshine, I believe that given what we see here, we'll keep that officer busy here locally.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, like to add to.
Can I speak too?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I just have one question through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Craddock. So we talked about just the cost of it. When you were estimating for 2 part-time positions, approximately how many hours a week would those two positions be in comparison to one full-time position?
So actually, we had them, we deployed about 42 hours a week compared to, I'm looking at sort of 35 hours a week is sort of what our usual full-time is.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My apologies. So not sure how to address it, not in closing, obviously, but just to add, obviously, it's quite evident that most of the people or most of the councillors are supportive of going to a one full-time bylaw officer. However, with what the CAO, Mr. Barbo, did mention of the 1.5, if that is a possibility, and that's to my opinion, I think that's something that we should visit, that way that we can make sure that, because if we do go to one full-time, then there is sick time, there's vacation time, there's all sorts of time that this individual will be off. And if we can go to 1.5 or 1.25 and getting the assistance of our neighboring communities to help us out with that time off, it will make sure that our constituents here in the municipality still receive the same services from our bylaw officers.
So at this point, Mr. Chair, what I would recommend or indicate would be that there will be a resolution at the next meeting to allow staff to recruit one full-time bylaw officer, and that staff be directed to consider options in terms of enhancing service and the most, we'll have a resolution that will basically provide us the direction to explore what you're suggesting and what council is suggesting with our neighbors and to provide. And I appreciate your comment with respect to ensuring the downtime. And so we will look at recruiting one and then have a project to see what we can do in terms of a buffer and or working with our partners.
Perfect.
If that's
Excellent.
okay with council when you, okay.
Councillor Pedder.
Yes, Mr. Said, we just something to add. The cost that you mentioned is the cost of the salary, and obviously a vehicle is going to be needed for that.
Yes, there's a cost to a salary, but we do have vehicle costs into that. But for comparative purposes, this would be the cost of the salary. In terms of vehicle, we'd have to have a look at that, and it would be brought forward with a budget anyway. And so we gave you the comparative between 2 part-time versus 1. but there would be an additional cost. Right now, what we benefited from is a very old police van. And so there, regardless of whether it's one or two, whether that van would still be sufficient, or van, it's an SUV, or we would be needing to have a vehicle, either leased or we would provide mileage to the individual. But given the bylaw, and this would be for a future discussion, it would be preferable for us to have a vehicle that would have the municipal logo for it and the official status for it. So you could be looking at an additional $15,000 a year in vehicle and gas.
Anyone else? That's it. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Maybe the whole 4.2, I will go to the Social Services and Health Committee for vaccine policy update, and I will pass the floor to the chair, Councillor Resto.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one, as was mentioned, we do have one item on the agenda this evening, Social Services and Health, and that's the vaccine policy update. As you're all aware, you received the memo that was from Alyssa to Jay in our packages prior to the meeting for review. We're all kind of new around the table here. I'd maybe turn it over to our CEO just for a quick backgrounder in terms of how we got to where we are with the vaccine policy, and then we'll open the floor for some discussion.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. I'll provide you, you've read the memo, and I would provide you with some anecdotes with respect to the history a little bit. I don't want to, I don't think it's appropriate to revisit history and to debate decisions that were taken by a previous council. However, it's important for you moving forward to know what those decisions were. COVID kicked in, I think, in March 2020, and we were all really, it was a really intense moment in the world. And, you know, it affected, no one had really seen this situation to the extent that it had occurred. And we, as a municipality, kicked into gear and started working immediately with our partners. We were approached by the hospital for having a COVID testing center, and it had to be near the hospital, but not on hospital grounds. It had to be accessible and all that kind of thing. So they settled on our Marcel Noel Hall, and there was COVID testing and vaccination centers there for the last couple of years. We were meeting on a regular basis, and it was a community. We informally activated our emergency plan and convened the key people at that table. And at that table, of course, for our emergency plan, which I'll share with you for the coordinating committee, is the mayor is involved in that and participates. Myself and any other key official given the situation. And in our case, of course, there's always going to be Ms. Craddock from a finance perspective, there's going to be a communication perspective, there's going to be a logistics perspective, and then you're going to have the kind of incident command type folks. And so we did have the OPP, it wasn't their incident, we did have fire, but what we had was public health, taking a lead with our local hospital and with our local home for the aged. And we met on a weekly basis for the better part of over a year. Then, you know, we were taking all of the measures at that point. Then in November, as indicated in the memo, the movement of the day was to ensure and try to get as many of our citizens vaccinated, because the belief then, and possibly still now, was that vaccinating or boosting, or whatever the term should be for this needle, has benefits in reducing the transmission and the severity and or of the illness. And so we worked with our partners and in combination with samples from other municipalities and and came to council with a vaccination policy. That vaccination policy was adopted, and we have been implementing that policy. It came back to council, I believe this summer, for reconsideration. It was not reconsidered. And so we've continued this policy as it is. Now, the policy, and I don't even know that I need to defend it, but the employees that it affects are all unionized for the most part. And we had kind of informal concurrence on the policy. There were aspects of the policy most recently that they would have suggested removal, but they didn't push it because it didn't affect anybody really. So really the policy has existed until now. Now, since then, as the memo indicates, and as you're all aware, in the general world, those policies are starting to be removed or rescinded. Depending on your industry, and it isn't just a blanket decision, it really depends on a variety of factors. Of course, your healthcare sector are going to be much more stringent. The sector that looks after the most vulnerable population that could be affected by the illness are going to be much more stringent, homes for the aged and so forth. Municipalities, I would suggest, though we're not declared an essential service in labor relations, we have to continue plowing and providing service and keeping our doors open. And so we had a need to ensure that that our business continuity could happen. And so we've kept the policy until now. Now, the federal government in June has removed the requirement. Again, that's not us, but it's a pretty large organization. The provincial government has removed theirs. Airports and people are flying without the need for vaccination. And municipalities are around, I'm going to guess, and it's just a guess, so 50% mark. Some are removing it and some are holding on. City of Toronto is removing theirs by end of this year. It's going to terminate by end of this year. And so that's where we're at with respect to history. Now, if you're asking for a position from the municipality or from the staff with respect to maintaining it, since it is a human resources policy approved here, my recommendation at this time is that given the scenario of a variety of other organizations, I don't see a need at this time to continue the policy. And I would recommend rescinding the policy and of course reserving the right to protect the public but protect our employees should things take an awful or the situation take an awful turn where we're being either directed or strongly recommended by our healthcare experts to put it in place. But our health unit at this point would not be directing us to do it. If you asked any healthcare professional, public health professional that we deal with, they would suggest that, you know, the more stringent the measures to protect the health of the public, the better. But they certainly would not be making a comment that would bind us on that. So my recommendation at this time would be, and I'm not trying to get into the debate, but the staff perspective is that I don't know that we need the policy, but that we certainly are mindful of all other preventative measures, and we are certainly monitoring our staff. We certainly have policies with our staff, vaccinated or not, on stay at home, wear masks if you were in contact, and so on and so forth, providing distancing. For some of you who have had the pleasure of taking our construction tour recently, you'll see that we have plexiglass between offices. And so we are taking protective measures. But at this time, I would not be, I certainly would respect council's wish regardless, but from a staff perspective, I don't have a problem removing it.
Thank you for that overview and your comments as well, and recommendation. I'll open the floor to comments to anyone around the table. So
I just
Jesse?
want to add that just recently through the Ontario government website, there's a guide for to developing your COVID-19 workplace safety plan. And they've indicated in there, I think it was just updated yesterday, that I'm just going to read a paragraph, is COVID-19 vaccines may supplement, but should not replace any workplace controls. No single action, including vaccination, is perfect at controlling risk. Workplace control measures reduce the chance of people being exposed to the virus. Vaccination reduces the chance that the person vaccinated will get sick if they are exposed to COVID-19. So basically it's saying that having the vaccine will help with the recovery, but not necessarily with the transmission. So, and then to use the other measures, masking, distancing as the plan.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I would read that just slightly differently, but that requirement, and we were required to provide a plan.
Mhm.
And so what they're indicating is that you don't need vaccine in the plan. No, they say it's it does help, but don't rely on it. And so what the purpose of that, to be clear, is that you're not, social distancing, is that what it's called? I do that as a point of, just because I'm not social.
Arm's length.
Yeah, so we do have plans, tapes, signage, protocols for staff and all of that. We were required to put that in place. And, I've commended the staff who are the foot soldiers, frontline folks. They've done an excellent job maintaining safe COVID practices. In some situations, in very difficult situations, garbage collection where there's two people that need to be in a truck. How do you do that? It was a real challenge, but Councillor Tacey, we do have that plan. And we're not simply reliant on our policy for vaccination. We are reliant on any and all measures that we could do to protect the health and welfare of our employees.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, suggestions? No, not seeing any. Okay, so
Yeah, I'll just say that for one, my stance on it is the consistency with other levels of government. So when both federal and provincial government are taking that away, I think it's just good from the perspective of being consistent across all levels of government. So I too would be in favor of rescinding that. So.
Thank you for those comments. So, and as our CEO mentioned, just regular safe practices as well will stay in place and everybody being responsible for their actions. So I guess it's consensus around the table to bring this to our next meeting with a resolution to rescind the existing vaccination policy and I don't think this has to go into the wording, or maybe it does, but with the acknowledgement that if conditions do change in the municipality in terms of increased rates, so we may look at bringing it back again. Okay, thank you. I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next item is under our Community Services Committee, and so for that, I'll pass that over to Councillor Rivard.
Mayor, so we also have one item on the agenda for community services, and it's brought forward by Councillor Nickel to apply for a $25,000 grant from Hydro One called the Energizing Life Fund for a community garden. And so I don't really want to steal too much of Caitlin's thunder here, so I'll pass it over to Caitlin to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, if you guys bring your attention to page 8, you will see the agenda item request form. The request is for council to decide whether or not we should proceed and submit a proposal for a chance to receive a non-repayable grant of $25,000 through Hydro One's Energizing Life campaign. The idea that I brought forward was a community garden. Throughout pages 9 to 13, you will see a breakdown of information about Hydro One's Energizing Life campaign, including the funding criteria, the benefits of a community garden, including an increase in community involvement, how a typical community garden layout is comprised, including the inclusion of accessible raised beds, growing season, cost, etc., the proposed location in West Nipissing, as well as alternative locations, the estimate of land, building, water, and supply requirements, a list of potential community partners, school, food bank, Au Chateau, community health center, and the municipal investment from both an administrative and public works perspective. One of the many things we heard while we were out campaigning was a desire for increased community opportunities. The main location proposed is situated close to Eau Chateau, where many residents from all 8 of our wards come to downsize by choice or out of necessity. Having a garden will give residents an opportunity to grow their own food, take part in workshops, and have a positive overall health impact. Community gardens can create an inclusive environment for residents of all ages and backgrounds for sharing in the common goal of sustainability and having a positive impact on the biodiversity of our area. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Katie. That's some good information, but I'd like to open up the floor for any questions by a show of hands. We'll start with Jerome.
So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have some of those community gardens in the community of Lavigne since 2016, 2017. Volunteers take part in the maintenance of that, and it's exactly as you mentioned. So one of the garden is like for tomatoes, and it's donated to the food bank yearly. So it's nice to have that community involvement. So I'm for sure behind you 100%.
Councillor Pellerin.
Yes, Smith Reese. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. $25,000. It's free money. Why not? Good idea.
Mayor Vachon.
I'd just like to say, I was really excited when Caitlin came with the idea, and it shows a great amount of initiative. She heard about the opportunity and came with ideas, and I think it's just a really positive thing that we can start our term off well. So I just wanted to say thank you to Councillor Nicol for taking that initiative.
I just had one question through you, Mr. Chair. Just in the how it works section of the document that you provided, it says the cost per resident is $50. How does that, I'm just not clear how that is with respect to the grant. Is that in addition to the grant or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Ristul, it would be in the future when they would be applying for the permanent spot for the season, and it would help offset the cost of soil, the wood chips potentially, but we can revisit that cost. And yes, you can fill in here maybe.
No way. I, as a staff person, I'm really impressed with, with the initiative and I've got zero negative to say. With respect to where it would go now though, what Councillor Nicol has done was a lot of the legwork that probably would need to happen in the development of the project, and the fact that Councillor Nicol has thought of the answers prior to is great, but once we start getting into it, so I think what we're going to form that in. We'll have those discussions and thoughts with other members of the community or stakeholders and discuss that. So the final location, which is subject to a variety of factors. We thought of certain locations. It was shared to me, and on the face of it, is fantastic. There might be some roadblocks with respect to other future uses by other individuals, but the concept of the community garden and the multi-sector involvement involving children and seniors is fantastic. The location could be slightly at a different area, but we'd still try and incorporate that concept. So what would happen at this point, Mr. Chair, would be that we would get the consensus to apply for the grant. We would put as much detail as possible, but then we would start working at taking Councillor Nicol's initiatives and working with the committee and growing them, if you don't mind, Councillor Nicol. But appreciate all of the thought, but that's fantastic. But we would start moving on and come back. There might be where the application could be well received if it was a partnership with some of those agencies, and then they would have a say on whether they want to have a fee or whether they pay an ongoing maintenance fee. So there's a variety of options there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, sorry for cats. But, you know, so that would be, the detail will be flushed out after, but just speaking personally as a resident of West Nipissing, I think it's exciting. I don't know if you can grow pepperettes.
Councillor Russell?
One more, through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's a great initiative as well, and I hope we can get behind it and submit the proposal for sure, work with community partners. I know for myself too, in door-to-door activities over the last couple of months, you hear a lot of that, you know, chatter from residents about having more activities for our seniors, for our young people, to keep them busy with things as well. And it's great to hear that it's taken roots in other parts of the municipality as well. So definitely lots of great info here and lots of work that's put in already. So appreciate that work that you've put forward, and I support this as well.
And I just had a few comments as well that it is it's pretty impressive, all the work you put into it, all the information that you gave us. It'll enhance community spirit, involvement. It is nice to hear that it's working in Laving, and Jerome has a bit of a background there. And also what Jerome touched on with the food bank, with the cost of living going up so quickly and cost of groceries, this could be a real help with food security for lower income families, or even just any resident here in West Nipissing. And after speaking with the food bank as well, they're having a hard time keeping up with their food for donations because they rely a lot on donations and such, but with the cost of living going up, donations may be harder to come by. So this is I believe, just a perfect opportunity for that. And the next step, as Jay mentioned, would be in the future, we'll talk about it some more and expand on it, but it'll also be up to us as council and anyone we know to try and build that group of volunteers and help and find ways to really enhance this project and get it going. I guess how do I finish it now?
So there's general consensus that we have support for this from council. So it will come back at the next meeting as a motion for our approval.
Sounds great.
Then you close your session and you pass it back to me.
Close session and back to you, Madam Mayor. Thanks.
Next we'll move on to number 5, correspondence and accounts. And so, Mr. Barbeau.
It is moved by Conseiller Gagné and c'est appuyé par Conseiller Resco. Be resolved that the minutes of council held on December 6, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Ready? And next we'll move on to new business. The first item on that section is 7.1, amendment to the Economic Development Committee terms of reference. So we discussed this in committee at the last meeting. And I believe the changes that have been made to that, I'm sorry, Mr. Barbeau.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
It's just,
Mr. Jean, Mr. Barbeau.
Il est proposé par Conseiller Pellerin et appuyé par Conseiller Gagné. Be it resolved that the terms of reference for the Economic Development Committee be adopted as presented.
Thank you. So I'll just do what I was doing before. I believe the main change in the terms of reference for this was adding the sector representation section that you see on page 22 or page 1 of 3 of the terms of reference. And I believe all else remain the same, but I'll just confirm that with Mr. Poudin, if you don't mind.
So, Madam Mayor, we did take the opportunity to consolidate the terms of reference. We had an extensive term of reference over the last several terms. So we've condensed it. We've articulated the vision or the mandate of the committee and more specific as an advisory committee to council, as it was more of a functioning committee in the past. So now we're advisory committee to council. So we have condensed the information into a much more manageable document. and provided a clear mandate for the advisory committee moving forward. And yes, Madam Mayor, we did include the sector representation that Council had discussed previously.
Okay. May I ask a question? The advisory committee, though, it's been an advisory committee for a couple of terms. It's just that the terms of reference was never updated at that time.
That's partially correct, Madam Mayor. The advisory committee was reappointed or reintroduced just 2 years into the last council mandate. And prior to that, we had not had an official economic development committee over the last several years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have other questions in regards to this item? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of motion? Thank you, Carrie. Okay. Next item on the agenda is 7.2.
It's moved by Councillor Duval and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-107, being a bylaw to establish the Planning Advisory Committee, shall come into force and take effect on the date it is passed.
Thank you. I'll just pass it to you. You wanted to give the update on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's strictly to amend the composition of the committee to have 4 councillors and 3 at large, where historically it has been 5 councillors and 2 at large.
And that's the only change that's been made.
Correct.
Okay, any questions on that item? Hearing none, all in favor? Jerry, thank you. Sorry, just lost my place. Okay, next we're going to go into 7.3, which is the appointment of the volunteers to our various municipal boards and committees. There is a memo that's been provided in regards to the process. So I think first we'd just like to have that discussion here. You've all had an opportunity to read it. Does anybody have any questions about the process or comments about how we intend to go through? Councillor Tessier?
Yes, Madam Mayor. On the ballots, when we write the names, are we going to have the council's name as well to identify the ballot who it belongs to?
They are not marked at this time, but if that is something that council would like, we can do it. But at this time, they are all just blank ballots. Yes, Councillor Pellerin.
Madam Mayor, I think it should be included in our names because I remember when I put my name to finish the term of the council that was missing, the guy that was presenting, Nigel, appointed by the municipal affair, was really clear that no vote can be taken by ballot or in secret. It's got to be open to the public.
So you have to make aware.
I don't know if you want to speak to that, whether there's a...
I know Nigel Belchamber said that through you, Madam Mayor. That is a gray area and is subject to interpretation. And when Mr. Belchamber said that, I didn't quite agree with him. If the process, and if you wish to mention your selections verbally on every one, I have certainly no problem at all doing it that way. At all, that's. If you want to adopt a process that indicates and that you adopt a process indicating that you're going to make your selections, then we're going to read those selections in a general manner and record them. And then in the process, the individuals with the requisite amount of votes finishing, let's say there's 5 spots and they're the top 5, form part of a resolution to appoint somebody. I have seen that process in procedural bylaws. I've seen processes where the City of Toronto, as an example, have a committee where the only thing that you would be voting on at council would be the discussion or the selection of what the subcommittee would do. So that would be even less transparent than what we're doing. If council wishes to indicate their choices in a public fashion, there's 17 CADEV people or something, and you want to pick 7 and you pick them and you want to state your selection. Certainly when in doubt, that is absolutely more open than the other one. I am not as concerned with respect to that. So it's council's prerogative, and so if council wants to state their selections publicly, and that's the wish of council, I certainly have no problem. But if you didn't, I'm not as uncomfortable with it as say Mr. Belchamber. Just saying, Mr. Belchamber is not a municipal affairs person. He's former CAO of a town outside of London in 1990 something. Yes, that was his opinion, but I don't know how that's been tested, and I haven't seen case law at the ombudsman that would indicate otherwise. Your call. So it's up to you, Madam Mayor, whether I would poll council.
Okay, so I'll poll council as far as who would be in favor. Who would be in favor of what we have, or who would like to see this? Okay, who would be in favor of having their names announced with their selections? So I'll start with Councillor Nicol.
No, thank you.
No.
From Petter.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so according to the will of council, we will leave the ballots unmarked, and we'll proceed with the procedure that we've set up here. Shall I pass it to Elisa to facilitate the rest? Is that or to you?
No, as clerk, I'll manage. I have assistance. So how this would happen will be that we have 3 sections of ballots. The first accessibility advisory committee is, I'll read the resolution because there aren't any decisions to be made. So be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Accessibility Advisory Committee for the term of 2022 to 2026. Céleste Auger-Proux, Sylvie Bélanger, Louise Gauthier, Yvonne Gauthier, and Isabelle Mosler.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. Moving on to the next, I'm going in this order, I guess, Committee of Adjustment. B, Mr. Barbeau.
Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment for the term of 2022 to 2026. Campbell Anderson, Roger Gagnon, and Jonathan Sandiford.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Uh, 7.3C. Mr. Barbeau.
So there's also 3 or 5 required, and there are 5. Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Court of Revision, Drains, for the term of 2022 to 2026. Hubert Baudry, Madeleine Baudry, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Marion O'Donnell, and Danielle Séguin.
Okay, questions or comments? All in favor? Okay, all except for Councillor Cochine, as declared.
Sorry about that, man.
Okay, now we get to the fun. We got 7.3D for the Agricultural Advisory Committee, 4 members.
So there's 4 members, and there are 7 applicants. You will be provided with a ballot. The 7 applicants are Hubert Baudry, Maria Anne Cirilli, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Marc Fryer, Joël Olivier, Danielle Séguin, and Kyle Vandermost. So what we'll do is have Mr. Poulin provide you with that, And you're to provide four check marks or four selections each.
Before we submit, what's the process in the event of a tie?
Well, what would happen is that those who have, and I think the memo indicated that if we have, let's say, two front runners and then three ties for the last two spots, I'll remove the front runners and I'll remove those that were not in a tie, and then you will only be selecting on the second ballot. You'll only have the choices to break the tie.
Thank you.
What I'll do is thank you, Mr. Poulenc. I will read the selections in no specific order, and Ms. Craddock will be tallying them, and then we'll go from there, okay? So for the Agricultural Advisory, I have Hubert Baudry, Jean-Pierre Cochain, Marc Fryer, and Joël Olivier. I have Hubert Baudry, Marc Fryer, Joël Olivier, and Kyle Vandermost. I have Mary Ann Cirilli, Marc Fryer, Joël Olivier, and Danielle Séguin. I have Jean-Pierre Cochain, Marc Fryer, Joël Olivier, and Kyle Vandermost. I have Hubert Baudry, Mary Ann Cirilli, Jean-Pierre Cochain, and Marc Fryer. I have Hubert Baudry, Mary Ann Cirilli, Joël Olivier, and Danielle Séguin. I have Hubert Baudry, Mary Ann Cirilli, Jean-Pierre Cochain, and Joël Olivier. And last, I have Hubert Baudry, Mary Ann Cirilli, Joël Olivier, and Danielle Séguin. So Lisa will read out the numbers to see if we have to take it to a second ballot.
We have Hubert Baudry, 6. Maria Ann Cirilli, 5. Jean-Pierre Cochain, 4. Marc Fryer, 5. Joël Olivier, 7. Dan Séguin, 3. And Kyle Vandermost, 2. So
We have four front runners.
We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 front runners.
So that would be,
Joël Olivier, Hubert Baudry, Marie Ann.
sorry, my clerk seals are.
Sorry. So we got Joël,
Joël,
and we got Hubert Baudry,
Hubert,
Maria Ann Cirilli, and Marc Fryer.
It is moved by Conseiller Gagné and seconded by Conseiller Pellerin. Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Agricultural Advisory Committee for the term of 2022 to 2026. Joël Olivier, Hubert Baudry, Mary Ann Cirilli, and Marc Fryer.
Okay, questions or comments? All in favor? Abstention? Okay, so we'll do this again for the cemetery board. Process worked well, so.
Right. So there are 6 applicants, Louis Benoit, André Cochain, Jean-Pierre Cochain, Elizabeth Hendren de Roberge, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Christine Ribertier. So for the cemetery committee, we have Louis Benoit, André Cochine, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Christine Aliberti. We have Louis Benoit, André Cochine, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Christine Aliberti. Louis Benoit, André Cochine, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Jean-Pierre Martin, Christine Aliberti. Louis Benoit, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Elizabeth Hendren de Roberge, Jean-Pierre Martin, Christine Aliberti. Louis Benoit, André Cochine, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Elizabeth Hendren de Roberge, and Christine Aliberti. Louis Benoit, André Cochine, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Christine Aliberti. Louis Benoit, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Elizabeth Hendren de Roberge, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Christine Aliberti. And the last one, Louis Benoit, André Cochine, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Christine Aliberti.
We have Louis Benoit, 8, André Cochine, 7, Jean-Pierre Cochine, 7, Elizabeth Hendren Lavage, 3, Jean-Pierre Martin, 7, and Christine Ribéry, 8.
Okay. So it is moved by Councillor Gagné, seconded by Councillor Restoul. Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Cemetery Board for the term of 2022 to 2026. Louis Benoit, André Cochine, Jean-Pierre Cochine, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Christine Aliberti.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next up is the Economic Development Committee.
So for the Economic Development Committee, is that the one you said? Sorry.
Yes.
We have, there's 7 members required and 17 applicants. We have Manon Arcan, Louis Benoit, Jesse Demers, Maxime Gatto, Bruno Lepage, Paul Levac, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, Steve Morrison, Isabelle Mosler, Marion O'Donnell, Steve Perrin, Rachel Kennel, Jean-Guy Séguin, Stuart Seville, Kyle Vandermost, and Randy Yuck. Okay, Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Bruno Lepage, Nicole Levac, Steve Perrin, Rachel Kennel, and Kyle Vandermost.
Mr. CEO, could you just maybe move this slow, because the list is long.
Okay, Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Bruno Lepage, Nicole Levac, Steve Perrin, Rachel Kennel, Kyle Vandermost. Okay. Second one, Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Bruno Lepage, Nicole Levac, Steve Morrison, Steve Perrin, Jean-Guy Séguin. Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Bruno Lepage, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, Rachel Kennel, and Jean-Guy Séguin. Excuse me. Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Nicole Levesque, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, Steve Perrin, and Randy Yuck. Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Bruno Lepage, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, Rachel Quesnel, Jean-Guy Séguin. Manon Arcan, Bruno Lepage, Jean-Pierre Martin, Steve Morrison, Marion O'Donnell, Jean-Guy Séguin, and Stuart Seville. Manon Arcan, Maxime Gaudeau, Bruno Lepage, Nicole Levesque, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, and Rachel Quesnel. Manon Arcan, Maxime Gaudeau, Bruno Lepage, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, Steve Perrin, and Rachel Quesnel. Last one. Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Bruno Lepage, Steve Morrison, Rachel Quesnel, Jean-Guy Séguin, and Stuart Seville.
So Manon Arcan, 9, Louis Benoit, 0, Jesse Demers, 6, Maxime Gaudeau, 2, Bruno Lepage, 8, Nicole Levesque, 4, Ashton Marcoux, 5, Jean-Pierre Martin, 6, Steve Morrison, 3, Isabel Mosler, 0, Marianne O'Donnell, 1, Steve Perrin, 4, Rachel Quesnel, 6, Jean-Guy Séguin, 5, Stuart Seville, 2, Kyle Vandermost, 1, and Randy Yuck, 1. And believe it or not, guys, I think we've got our 7. So we have Manon Arcan,
Okay.
Bruno Lepage,
Okay.
Jesse Demers,
Okay.
Jean-Pierre Martin,
Okay.
Ashton Marcoux,
There.
Rachel Quesnel, and Jean-Guy Séguin.
Okay. It's moved by Councillor Restoule, seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Economic Development Committee for the term of 2022 to 2026. Manon Arcan, Jesse Demers, Bruno Lepage, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, Rachel Quesnel, Jean-Guy Séguin.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Chris Rivard, yes. Thank you. That's nice.
Sorry?
That was 7.
Yes, that's 7. Sounds good.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yes.
I must have missed one.
Okay.
So the next one is the Environmental Services Board.
Thank you.
And we are requiring 5 members, and there are 10. We have Louise Allaire, Maxime Gaudeau, Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux, Raymond Marlotte, Steve Morrison, Isabel Mosler, Marion O'Donnell, Danielle Olivier, and Randy Yuck. And Denis Baudry, sorry about that.
On your ballot.
For the public's record, Monsieur Baudry, there was a clerical error. His name should have appeared on the public document here.
it's getting YouTube.
Your wife's really proud.
You always like that type. So we have Maxine Gatto, Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell, and Dennis Beaudry. Ashton Marcoux, Raymond Marleau, Danielle Olivier, Randy Yuck, and Dennis Beaudry. Sorry, are you?
Yeah, no, I was confused. That's okay. Thank you.
Louise Allaire, Maxime Gatto, Raymond Marleau, Marion O'Donnell, and Denis Beaudry. Maxime Gatto, Dave Lewington, Raymond Marleau, Randy Yuck, and Denis Beaudry. Raymond Marleau, Steve Morrison, Isabelle Mossler, Danielle Olivier, and Denis Beaudry. Louise Allaire, Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux, Danielle Olivier, and Denis Beaudry. Louise Allaire, Raymond Marleau, Steve Morrison, Isabelle Mossler, and Danielle Olivier. Raymond Marleau, Steve Morrison, Isabelle Mossler, Marion O'Donnell, and Danielle Olivier. Maxime Gatto, Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux, Raymond Marleau, and Denis Beaudry.
On the first ballot, we have Louise Allaire, 3, Maxine Gatto, 4, Dave Lewington, 4, Ashton Marcoux, 4, Raymond Marleau, 7, Steve Morrison, 3, Isabelle Mossler, 3, Marianne O'Donnell, 3, Dan Olivier, 5, Randy Yuck, 2, and Denis Beaudry, 7. And so this means we've got 3 that are, so Denis Beaudry, Raymond Marleau, and Dan Olivier all have the highest number of votes. However, for the last 2 spots, we have a 3-way tie between Maxime Gatto, Dave Lewington, and Ashton Marcoux.
Could you cross out every other name but those 3 that have 4 votes? And then on the second ballot? And so we are looking for, we have 1 remaining out of the 3. Is that what we're looking at?
We're looking for 2.
We're looking for 2. Sorry about that. 2.
Oh, that's me. Oh, that's my talent sheet.
Two of the 3 candidates should be selected. This is fun. Ready? Drum roll. Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux. Maxime Gatto, Dave Lewington. Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux. Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux. Maxime Gatto, Dave Lewington. Maxime Gatto, Dave Lewington. Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux. There's only one selection here. Dave Lewington. Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux.
Then we have Maxine Gatto, 3, Dave Lewington, 9, and Ashton Marcoux, 5.
You reread the names of the successful ones then, so I could. There's Dave Lewington and Ashton Marcoux.
Yep.
I have that memory.
Raymond Marlowe,
So just a second, Ashton Marcoux, Raymond Marlowe.
Dan Villiers, and Denis Baudry.
And Denis Baudry. Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded by Councillor Restoul. Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Environmental Services Board for the term of 2022-2026. Lewington, Ashton Marcoux, Ray Marlowe, Dan Olivier, and Denis Baudry.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, next up we have the Planning Advisory Committee.
So for the Planning Advisory Committee, you're selecting 3 out of 12 candidates. Campbell Anderson, Maria Ann Cirilli, Mark Fryer, Roger Gagnon, Dave Lewington, Ashton Marcoux, Jean-Pierre Martin, Marian O'Donnell, Joël Olivier, Jonathan Sandifort, and Danielle Seguin, and Kyle Vandermost.
Joe?
So for the Planning Advisory Committee, we have Mark Fryer, Roger Gagnon, and Danielle Seguin. Mark Fryer, Roger Gagnon, Danielle Seguin. Roger Gagnon, Joël Olivier, Danielle Seguin. Campbell Anderson, Marianne Cirilli, and Jonathan Sandifort. Hope I'm not mispronouncing. Mark Fryer, Roger Gagnon, Jean-Pierre Martin. Roger Gagnon, Jean-Pierre Martin, Joël Olivier. Mark Fryer, Dave Lewington, Jean-Pierre Martin. Campbell Anderson, Jonathan Sandiford, and Kyle Vandermost. Mark Fryer, Dave Lewington, and Ashton Marcoux.
Campbell Anderson, 2, Maria Ann Cirilli, 1, Mark Fryer, 5, Roger Gagnon, 5, Dave Lewington, 2, Ashton Marcoux, 1, Jean-Pierre Martin, 3, Marianne O'Donnell, 0, Joel Olivier, 2, Jonathan Sandiford, 2, Dan Seguin, 3, Kyle Vandermost, 1. Which means we've got Mark Fryer and Roger Gagnon, and we've got a tie between Jean-Pierre Martin and Dan Seguin.
Cross cross those off, the two successful and those who are not part of the tie. So we have two people that you'll be selecting one. Excuse me. So the remaining person, we have Danielle Séguin. Danielle Séguin. Jean-Pierre Martin. Danielle Séguin. Jean-Pierre Martin. Danielle Séguin. Danielle Séguin. Jean-Pierre Martin. Sorry about that. Trying here. And Jean-Pierre Martin.
Four for Jean-Pierre Martin and five for Danielle Seguin.
So the names for the three again,
Mark Fryer, Roger Gagnon, and Danielle Seguin.
it is moved by Councillor Coshine and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Just recognizing doctor's signatures here. Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Board for the term of 2022 to 2026. Mark Fryer, Roger Gagnon, and Danielle Séguin.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next up is the Police Services Board, Mr. Level.
With the Police Services Board, we're only appointing one, and we have 6 applicants. Campbell Anderson, Roland Larrabee, Jean-Pierre Martin, Jean-Guy Séguin, Kyle Vandermost, and Randy Young. We have Jean-Guy Séguin. Kyle Vandermost, Jean-Guy Seguin, Randy Yuck, Jean-Guy Seguin, Campbell Anderson, Jean-Pierre Martin, Campbell Anderson, and Jean-Pierre Martin.
Campbell Anderson, 2. Roland Larrabee, 0. Jean-Pierre Martin, 2. Jean-Guy Seguin, 3. Kyle Vandermost, 1. Randy Yuck, 1.
Jean-Guy Seguin.
Jean-Guy Seguin.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard, seconded by Councillor Nickel. Be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Police Services Board for the term of 2022 to 2026. Jean-Guy Seguin.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, next we have the Public Library Board. Oh, sorry, my mistake, Property Standards Committee.
For the Property Standards Committee, we need to select 3, and there are 4. Campbell Anderson, Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell, and Kyle Vandermost. So we have Campbell Anderson, Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell. Campbell Anderson, Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell. Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell, Kyle Vandermost. Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell, Kyle Vandermost. Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell, Kyle Vandermost. Campbell Anderson, Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell. Campbell Anderson, Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell. Campbell Anderson, Ashton Marcoux, Kyle Vandermost. Excuse me. And lastly, Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell, and Kyle Vandermost.
Campbell Anderson, 5. Ashton Marcoux, 9. Marion O'Donnell, 8. And Kyle Vandermost, 5, which means we're doing a runoff for the last spot again.
Kyle Vandermost. Kyle Vandermost. Campbell Anderson. Kyle Vandermost. Kyle Vandermost. Campbell Anderson. Kyle Vandermost. Campbell Anderson. Campbell Anderson.
Campbell Anderson, 4, Kyle Vandermost, 5.
Be resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Property Standards Committee for the term of 2022 to 2026. Ashton Marcoux, Marion O'Donnell, and Kyle Vandermost.
Questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, and last but not least, the Public Library Board.
So we have 7 and we require 6. We have Amanda Baird, Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Isabel Mossler, Christina Ribelzi, and Deborah Rival. We have Amanda Baird, Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Christine Ribelzi, and Deborah Rivard. Amanda Baird, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Isabel Mossler, Christine Ribelzi, and Deborah Rivard. Amanda Baird, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Isabel Mossler, Kristen Riverty, and Deborah Rivard. Amanda Baird, Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Christine Ribelzi, Deborah Rivard. Amanda Baird, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Isabel Mossler, Christine Ribelzi, and Deborah Rivard. Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Isabel Mossler, Christine Ribelzi, and Deborah Rivard. Amanda Baird, Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Christine Ribelzi, and Deborah Rival. Lastly, Amanda Baird, Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Christine Ribelzi, and Deborah Rival.
Amanda Baird, 7. Stephen Friedrich, 5. Catherine Hatton, 8. Suzie Michaud, 8. Isabel Mosler, 4. Christine Riberty, 8. And Deborah Rivard, 8. So it means your board is Amanda Baird, Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Christine Riberty, and Deborah Rivard.
Okay. Be resolved that the following, it's moved by Councillor Pellerin, Conseiller Pellerin, et appuyé par Conseiller Gagné. Be resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Police Library Board for the term of 2022 to 2026. Did I say police library? Public library. Can I end 2022? Okay, so yeah, they're actually, we've got them, anyway, sorry.
We miss you, Mel.
I miss you too, man. You're not very. Anyway, so be it resolved that the following individuals be appointed to the West Nipissing Public Library Board for the term of 2022 to 2026. Amanda Baird, Stephen Friedrich, Catherine Hatton, Suzie Michaud, Cindy and Deborah Rivard.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? No, you. All except yours, thank you. Okay, well, that's the appointments over. It was a little long, but important work. We'll move on to item 7.4 on the agenda, which is a nomination for a Zone 9 representative for the Roma Board of Directors. That's the Rural Ontario Municipal Association. So Councillor Tessier contacted me and stated she was interested in putting her name forward for this position. The board will be elected for Roma at their conference, which is on, I believe, January 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. In order for the nomination to be accepted by Roma, it does need to come with a resolution from council. So we're putting that forward that Ann Tessier would like to put her name, and we're looking for support or your feedback on council for that.
So
make sure that people
No, that's okay.
sorry.
So it's moved by Councillor Gagné, seconded by Councillor Restoule. Be resolved that the Council for the Municipality of West Nipissing endorses Ann Tessier, Councillor, for the position of Roma Zone 9 representative for the 23-27 Roma Board of Directors.
Okay, I said my preamble. Questions or comments from any of our members? Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And next item on the agenda is 7.5, and it's a resolution to authorize a waiver of the fee for the recreation complex hall for the West Nipissing Food Bank for an event. I'm sorry, Marvel, on whenever it is, February 11th. Thank you.
It's moved by Councillor Restoule, seconded by Councillor Tessier. Whereas Council received a request from the West Nipissing Food Bank at its meeting held on December 20th, 2022, wherein the group is requesting the free use of the Sturgeon Falls Recreation Complex Hall in order to host a fundraising event on February 11, 2023. Be it therefore resolved that Council hereby authorizes the free use of the Sturgeon Falls Recreation Complex Hall to the West Nipissing Food Bank so they can host their fundraising event scheduled for February 11, 2023.
So the request letter or email is in your packages there. Does anybody have questions or comments on this request? Yes, Ms. Councillor Restoule.
Just through you, I mean, I'm just wondering, do we have any other details on what their event is?
No,
I had through you, Madam Mayor, I had a chance to meet with I believe it's the president, Glenn Henry, and he was mentioning that Roadhouse will be attending that event. It's kind of like a dance with, I'm not sure if there's supper, but you can buy some drinks and just support the food bank that way. I know I just wanted to add a comment that I think it'd be good that as many of us, if we are available that day, right, to try and show our support for the food bank. It's a really important organization in the community, and they're going through with this fundraiser that hopefully starts them off on the right foot for 2023.
we go through.
I don't have that much information, but I just know that there's a live band, there's some dancing, some drinks involved.
And just through you and this, going back to my old memory, it's not always that great, but other similar requests that we've had in the past for this. I know I've been involved in discussions around these requests, and I know we had some discussions about staff time that's required for that type of stuff, and I just wanted to ask that question.
To you, Madam Mayor, yes, we have had a policy where we often charge by policy a cleaning fee for staff time. There were different levels. I don't have it in front of me, but Mr. Poulenc could elaborate.
May I, Madam Mayor?
Of course.
So you'll recall, Councillor Restoule, we do have a fee waiver policy. Obviously, the food bank does meet all requirements and criteria. And I don't know if you'll recall, but we haven't done it in a couple of years because we haven't been using the halls that much. We would come back to council in the new year with a list of events and organizations that wish to use our hall at no charge. And then council would do a blanket resolution approving those events, such as the Chamber Business Awards, the Community Living Gala, and those types of events that we would come to council in early 2023. If we have all that information, we've received those requests, and council would approve organizations, and then they could host and we could book the hall for those events. And any other requests that do come in, we would go through the regular waiver fee policy. But I guess in this case, February 11th is not that far away, so we thought it was time sensitive and we brought it forward to council.
Yes.
Just through you, just a last comment, I think it's a great, I just want to make sure we're following
Being
the policies.
consistent.
But I think it's a great event, and I know it's especially in these last couple of years, even more so, it's been something that's been a great benefit to the community, so it's great we can support them in their fundraising.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Thank you, carried.
Oh, sorry.
Motion.
I believe you had it there. Yeah.
Yes, correct. I'm sorry. And item 7.6, Mr. Barber.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Tessier, seconded by Councillor Cochon. Whereas at the December 20th meeting, Council received a request from the West Nipissing Food Bank requesting that the financial assistance received by the municipality of West Nipissing being applied towards their leasing responsibilities can be be continued for the year 2023. Be it therefore resolved that council authorizes the financial contribution of $8,149.80, $679.15 per month, be sustained for the West Nipissing Food Bank to be applied toward their rental costs for the year 2023.
Okay, so the request letter is in your package. I believe this is something we've traditionally done for many years. How many years have we been? A lot. Yeah. Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments about this request?
Just, again, I know it's a budget issue and we can approve it into next year. And great initiative, like we just mentioned, but is it fairly similar to what I'm sure it's probably not very different than what we did this past year in terms of.
Yeah,
I believe there's a slight increase.
It's about $30 a month increase, so $360 for the year.
okay, any other questions? Comments? Okay, all in favor? 6, 7, 8. Thank you, carried unanimously. Okay, I'll just say a couple of quick words as we head into the holiday season. I want to just take a moment to say thank you again to all of the residents, citizens who stepped forward, put their names forward for committee positions. You know, on one hand, it was very encouraging to see so much support and to see more names than positions across the board. It shows real engagement by the community, and I think that's a really positive thing for us. You know, and it's unfortunate that on the other hand, we don't have enough positions to engage all of that energy and goodwill. But I do want to say thank you to each and every person who put their name forward, because your interest in helping the community is much appreciated. Merci encore à ceux qui ont postulé pour les postes de comité. C'est encourageant d'avoir autant de candidats, mais c'est aussi dommage que nous n'ayons pas assez de postes pour engager toute l'énergie qui vient de la communauté. I'd also just like to take a quick moment to thank all of our members of council and our staff team. The people in the community don't see it, but the last month has been really busy, and you've each put in a lot of time reviewing materials and participating in training sessions and attending meetings and learning the ropes. And I've really enjoyed getting to know each of you through this process. We have a really great team, and I know that we're going to make the next year awesome for our whole community. And lastly, just to all our residents, on behalf of council and staff, I'd like to wish you all a joyous holiday season and a happy and healthy 2023. Enfin, à tous nos résidents, Au nom du conseil et du personnel, je vous souhaite à tous de joyeuses fêtes et une bonne et heureuse année. Merci. Bonne soirée.
Il est proposé par conseiller Cochin, appuyé par conseiller Saint-Louis. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-108, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 20th day of December 2022, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions, comments? All in favor? Okay. Unanimous, carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on December 20th, 2022 be adjourned. Last resolution of the year.
All in favor? Thank you. The last resolution of the year